The story starts with Arata Kaizaki, who is a 27-year-old adult, and unable to find any stable work. One night, while returning back to his home after meeting up with some friends, he meets Ryo Yoake from the ReLife laboratory, who offers him the chance of participating in the ReLife project. Even though it sounded fishy, Arata somehow accepts to enter the experiment, when he got to hear the bonus that he was going to get. He soon learns that ReLife involves him taking a pill that makes him appear 10 years younger than his current age. And since he was a 27-year adult, he looks like a 17-year high schooler again. To complete the experiment, he needs to enroll as a third-year high school student at Aoba High School and complete his year just like any ordinary student. When Kaizaki arrives at the school, he is shocked to see that Ryo is in the same class as his. Even though he has a rough start, he quickly becomes friends with fellow classmates Oga Kazuomi, Rina Karyu, and Onoya An. Later, Kaizaki finds out that Ryo has also taken the medicine to support Kaizaki while he is studying at the school. Ryo explains to Arata that ReLife is an opportunity for him to relive his youth in an attempt to change his current self. From there, Arata's ReLife experience begins. Kaizaki becomes acquainted with his classmates, Oga and Rina, who sit next to him. He learns about Rina's competitive nature and her disappointment in losing the position of class representative to fellow classmate Chizuru, showing us her jealousy and her love for Oga. When the teacher hands out their test sheets, we see that Kaizaki has failed in all of the subjects. To which, Oga suggests that he could help Kaizaki prepare for the exam, and upon hearing it, Onoya also requests to join the study meet, since she has also failed in all subjects. During the lunch break, Kaizaki crosses paths with Chizuru, however, her blunt and to-the-point approach throws him for a loop. After finding out that she hasn't got any money with her, Kaizaki lends her a 1,000-yen note to buy her lunch. She thanks him for his help, and our boy Kaizaki is love-struck after seeing her cute smile. They meet again after school, where Chizuru shares with Kaizaki that she has been called socially awkward and does not understand people or know how to communicate with them. But she genuinely wants to change that about herself, and she gathers enough courage to ask Kaizaki to become her friend. Kaizaki is shocked at her honesty, and they become friends after exchanging phone numbers. The next day, during gym class, when Kaizaki ends up hurting himself, Ryo explains that, despite his youthful appearance, Arata's body is still biologically a 27-year-old man, therefore Kaizaki should be careful of that fact. Meanwhile, Chizuru takes Kaizaki's advice to try and smile more, in an attempt to make new friends, but her forced smiles are misinterpreted by Rina. She thinks that, despite viewing Chizuru as her academic rival, Chizuru was unaware of who she even was, and thinks that Chizuru is mocking her. Next day at school, when Rina saw that Chizuru is smiling properly with Kaizaki, her doubts became real, causing their relationship to further degrade. That night, when we see Ryo sending out reports about the test subjects of ReLife experiment, we find out that there is another test subject, besides Kaizaki Arata. At school, Chizuru's continued attempts of smiling and becoming friends with Rina have the unintended effect of making her angry and irritated due to her misconception, thinking that Chizuru's actions are just out of animosity. Having lost both the class representative position and not being able to be with Oga because of Chizuru, Rina begins to think less of herself and grows angrier towards Chizuru for mocking her for her shortcomings. Chizuru, however, is unaware of Rina's feelings towards her and tells Kaizaki that she and Rina are becoming friends, which surprises him. The next day, after staying late at school for her volleyball practice, Rina sees Chizuru's school bag near the teacher's room and steals it in revenge. But she is caught by Kaizaki, who immediately recognizes Chizuru's bag. As Kaizaki attempts to stop her, they both fall down the staircase and become unconscious. Kaizaki wakes up in the school infirmary after the fall he and Rina had. When Rina wakes up, Kaizaki confronts her about her actions, and Rina shares her feelings of insecurity and frustration towards Chizuru, since Rina believes her to have taken everything she has worked hard for. But Kaizaki encourages her not to stoop to the level of harassing people she does not like, and to continue being a person who works hard to obtain what she wants. Chizuru decides to speak with Rina directly, since she honestly wants to become her friend. Rina reveals her feelings towards Chizuru, but learns that Chizuru never meant to disrespect her, and was truly trying to become her friend. After remembering Kaizaki's words, Rina asks Chizuru to smile for her. Upon seeing that creepy, sadistic smile of her, Rina finally understands that Chizuru is just an awkward girl who doesn't know how to communicate with other people. With the confusion cleared up, Rina apologizes for all the bad things she has done and agrees to be Chizuru's friend, on the condition that Chizuru must also acknowledge Rina as her rival. Next day, Oga and Onoya pay a visit to Kaizaki's apartment for a study session, since both Kaizaki and Onoya keep scoring poorly on their exam. After studying for a while, Oga leaves when he gets a call from his part-time job. After he goes, Onoya tells Kaizaki that they had previously met at the convenience store near the station, and she has fallen in love with him at the first sight. Ryo decides to check up on Kaizaki through his cell phone, but he learns that Onoya and Kaizaki are alone in the room, and he rushes to Kaizaki's apartment. Meanwhile, Onoya attempts to kiss Kaizaki, but he somehow stops her from doing it, just as Ryo arrives. Ryo scolds Onoya for her actions, and she reveals that she was only testing Kaizaki. We find out that she is actually 27-year-old, and she is Ryo's co-worker at the ReLife laboratory. Onoya also explains that she was supposed to be Kaizaki's support in this experiment, but Ryo had to take over her assignment, since she was not able to complete her training in time. After the confusion is cleared up, both Onoya and Ryo apologize to Kaizaki for the trouble she has caused. As Ryo is writing his report about Kaizaki's progress in the experiment, he remembers his past, when he was supporting Subject 1 of the ReLife project. Ryo was scolded by his supervisors for being too involved in the subject's life, and thus he had to distance himself from the subject. One day, he received a mail from the headquarters to conduct a suitability evaluation of Subject 2 for the ReLife experiment. And he was asked to scout out Arata Kaizaki to potentially be Subject 2, and to check if he is suitable for the experiment. After observing for a bit, Ryo is amazed by his polite behavior and observational skills, unlike Test Subject 1, which he has been handling for a year now. Just then, Onoya arrives, stating that she was the one who found out Kaizaki, in order to make him Subject 2, and they start discussing on how to proceed for the experiment. After a year has passed, the results for Subject 1 were thought to be a failure, as the person in the experiment has not changed at all. Later, Ryo apologizes and informs to Subject 1 that they have failed this experiment. While he is discouraged by his failure to support Subject 1, Ryo finds out from Onoya that he has been selected to support Subject 2, Kaizaki Arata, for the next ReLife experiment. She encourages him not to give up, and to make his next job a success. And just like in the first episode, we see Ryo following and observing Kaizaki for a while, before approaching him for the experiment. Ryo concludes his report by stating that, despite of Kaizaki's daily struggles to reform his life, he is definitely making progress. But, in reality, Kaizaki fails again in several subjects, and needs to reappear for the makeup exams. We get to know that Tamurai is also bad at studies, just like Kaizaki. In the evening, after the volleyball practice ended, Rina stands up for Tamarai when other volleyball members try to make fun of her. This encourages Tamarai to study hard for the exam so that she can play more volleyball with Rina before graduating. The next day, Tamarai and Kaizaki take a makeup test for the subjects they failed. However, Tamarai passes this time, whereas Kaizaki fails yet again. At the volleyball court, Tamarai loses consciousness while practicing, since she studied all night to pass the exam. Unfortunately, this causes Rina to have an accident, due to which she won't be able to play in the upcoming tournament. And because of this incident, Rina and Tamarai have a fight that affects their friendship badly. The next day, Chizuru notices that there is a problem between Rina and Tamarai, and goes to consult with Arata at his house. While talking about the problem, Arata remembers about his past, and his mentor, who committed suicide due to a bad workplace environment. He goes into a shock after remembering his past, and starts apologizing to Chizuru, by thinking of his mentor, to confront his past mistake. After the discussion, they both decide to cooperate, and create a plan to make Rina and Tamarai friends again. The next after school, Kaizaki and Chizuru confront Tamarai about the current situation, which is overheard by Aki and Nobu. Thus, Aki decides to bring Rina and Oga, and listen to a private discussion among Tamarai, Arata, and Chizuru. While talking things out, Tamarai reveals that the reason why she joined Aoba High School was because of the discrimination she was receiving in her previous school for being talented in volleyball. Therefore, she is grateful to have Rina as her friend, since she made her love volleyball again. To this, Chizuru talks about her past, of how she used to keep moving from one place to another, due to which she could never make any friends. And we all get to know why she became such a gloomy person. She motivates Tamarai to talk with Rina again, and settle the situation, instead of staying quiet. When they come out of the locker room, the secret audience is caught, and Rina runs away, before Tamarai can talk with her. On the day of the match, Rina doesn't come, due to which Chizuru and Kaizaki go to Rina's house, with a little bit of help from Ryo. Chizuru and Kaizaki are somehow able to motivate Rina to play the game with Tamarai, and become friends like before. Rina finally agrees to play, and they all rush back to the school. Even though they try to win the last round, they eventually lose the game. After the match ended, Rina and Tamarai apologize to each other and start crying. And the trio goes back to being the best of friends. A couple of days later, Kaizaki tries to confront his past and pays a visit to his senpai's grave. While praying, Kaizaki has a flashback about his past, where he remembers the bad workplace environment of the company he was working for. In order to stop the bullying, he tried to stand up for his mentor, but things got worse day by day, and his mentor committed suicide. While returning from the graveyard, Kaizaki crosses paths with two of his juniors from his previous company, and learns that his actions gave both of them the courage to keep working as proper adults in that company. And this encounter with the juniors helps Kaizaki to finally accept his past, and while returning back to his house, he thanks Ryo for planning this surprise meetup for him. At school, while discussing about relationships, Kaizaki indirectly explains to Oga about love, and how important it is to experience it. He keeps asking Oga various questions about his choice of girl, by providing real-life scenarios, and Oga realizes that he likes Rina. While returning from school, Oga and Kaizaki see Rina with a man, and Oga rushes towards her. But he learns that Rina just had a heat stroke, and the man was actually trying to help her. That night, while talking with Kaizaki, Oga tells that he is in love with Rina. And the next day at school, he asks for love advice from Kaizaki, Onoya, Chizuru, and Ryo. After discussing, he decides to invite Rina to the fireworks festival, and confess his feelings to her. That night, Oga invites Rina to the summer festival, and Rina is absolutely shocked upon seeing his message. At the fireworks festival, Kaizaki, Onoya, Ryo, and Chizuru split up in order to let Oga and Rina to be alone, as they knew Oga was also planning on proposing Rina. And in the midst of a walking crowd, Rina and Kazuomi confess their feelings toward each other. Ryo and Onoya also had a plan, so that Kaizaki and Chizuru end up alone together as well. Just as the fireworks begin, Chizuru tells Kaizaki that she was really happy to meet him at this school. Chizuru recalls the events that have happened since the start of the school year, and from the flashbacks, we come to know that she actually met Ryo while she was an adult, and became subject one for the ReLife project. After the festival ends, Kaizaki walks Chizuru to her home, and while they were resting on a park bench, they start opening up about their feelings. While talking, Kaizaki gradually realizes that he has fallen in love with Chizuru. But he decides not to tell her, since everyone he met in school will forget about him once his ReLife experiment ends. Sadly, neither of them realize that they both are test subjects for the ReLife experiment, and they promise each other to never forget the moments they shared together. We see that both Ryo and Onoya are happy about the recent events occurring with Kaizaki and Chizuru, and we get to know that Onoya is going to be her supporter from now on. Realizing that she was preoccupied with her feelings for Arata, Chizuru decides to confront Ryo, asking him if Kaizaki is also a ReLife subject. Since Ryo doesn't want to confirm it, he warns her that exposing a test subject would end the experiment for him immediately, and they would never get to see each other again. Ryo also reveals to her that Onoya works for the ReLife laboratories, and she is going to be her new supervisor from here on. The cultural festival approaches, and Oga tricks Arata into volunteering as the boys' representative, heading the preparations for the cultural festival. And, out of nowhere, Chizuru decides to volunteer herself as the girls' representative. After school ends, Chizuru is resting alone in the classroom, while Kaizaki watches her closely, and he whispers out that he has truly fallen in love with Chizuru. The day of the cultural festival has started, and everyone is having fun at the class English-style cafe. But Kaizaki can't stop thinking about being erased from their friends' memories. While strolling around the festival, Chizuru tries to confirm her feelings towards Kaizaki, but she stops when things start to get weird between the two. While submitting the report on Hishiro Chizuru, a discussion between Ryo and Onoya reveals that they shouldn't let Chizuru and Kaizaki fall in love, as both of their memories about each other will be removed after the experiment ends. But it might be too late, as we see that, during the photo session, Kaizaki and Chizuru's eyes full of love, looking at each other passionately. Chizuru is completely confused about her current feelings for Kaizaki, and starts to avoid him, to try and see things from a different perspective. However, after talking it over with Tamarai and Rina during the break, she asks Kaizaki out for a date on Christmas Day. During the date, Ryo texts Kaizaki, telling him that today is actually Chizuru's birthday. And Kaizaki decides to buy her a present, and they end up buying phone straps for each other as gifts. As they walk home, Arata finally confessed to Chizuru that he loves her. Chizuru is surprised, but she realizes her own feelings for Arata, and she too confesses that she loves Kaizaki. Just then it starts to rain and they both walk back holding each other's hand. During their farewell, Kaizaki and Chizuru bid their friends a final goodbye, since they know that they won't be able to see each other again. After the farewell ended, Chizuru and Kaizaki meet up outside the school. They hugged each other passionately, and, as they were about to say their goodbyes, they both start crying, and Kaizaki promises that he will never forget Chizuru, since he doesn't know that she is also a test subject of the ReLife experiment. Later at Kaizaki's apartment, Ryo tells Kaizaki that his ReLife experiment was a huge success and offers him a list of jobs, along with a pill to end his ReLife. While at Chizuru's apartment, Onoya is doing the same thing with Chizuru. Chizuru falls asleep after taking the pill and Onoya sees that she had written about her lover for Kaizaki Arata on her palm as a last attempt to remember about her past with him. Onoya is shocked and starts crying. Since she saw the writing, she will have to erase it, even if she doesn't want to do it. Before taking the pill, Arata tells Ryo that he wants to work for ReLife Laboratories rather than taking any other job, and Ryo is shocked by his decision. 1 year later, at a ReLife company dinner party, Arata meets Chizuru, who is also working for ReLife Laboratory. Even though they do not recognize each other, Chizuru gets to know that Kaizaki was actually a ReLife test subject. After dinner, they bump into each other outside the restaurant. And Chizuru tells Kaizaki that she too was a ReLife subject, and Kaizaki asks Chizuru about her experience. Coincidentally, she replies that it was like a firework, and this phrase triggers the memory of both being together at the fireworks festival, and they finally remember their past that they had forgotten until now. With their memories restored, we see Chizuru walking hurriedly to hug Kaizaki. If you have enjoyed watching till the end, don't forget to like the video, and comment down your thoughts about the anime. Until the next video, stay safe, and thank you for watching.